Welcome back to the second part of my 4-part Lady Gaga recreation series in honor of the Mayhem Tour that's happening this year. In my case, I'm going for the Singapore tour because I live in Singapore. And in the first video, we covered 3 different looks that require some brow blocking. In this video, we'll be covering looks that require you to bleach your brows. But in this case, I'm not going to be bleaching my brows because I just don't want to. So I'll be showing you my favorite way to fake that bleached brow look without actually bleaching your brows. If you're only interested in one of the looks that I've done for this video, feel free to skip the respective timestamps. But now I'm gonna talk through about how I get that fake bleached brow look with just one product. Preferably, you want to do this after you've done your base makeup, so you want to put your foundation on. And this is just mainly so that we don't blend out whatever we'll be putting on our brows. In this case, I'll be using the Clinique Even Better Clinical Foundation. And when you do your foundation, you just want to make sure that you also go through your brows as well, so that the skin underneath matches the rest of your face. Then I'm using a lighter concealer in the middle of my face to brighten up the center of my face. And the main thing that I'm using for my brows to get the bleached brow look is actually concealer. You can either use a concealer that's around the shade of the bleached brow. This is the one from About Tone in number 21, and it's in the warm shade, so it's slightly yellow, and that's because when brow hairs are bleached, they tend to turn a little bit more on the yellow side. If you don't have a lighter concealer, you can also mix your color corrector together with your normal concealer, or you can also mix in a little bit of white into the concealer. So use whatever you have on hand if you don't want to buy anything new. Another option is also using brow gels that are meant to conceal your brows. This one is from Judydoll, which is a Chinese brand, but there are plenty of other brands who also do this shade of brow gel. For example, Clinique just released a brow gel that is also meant to conceal your brows or to lighten the brow. In this case, I'll just be using concealer because that's what I like to use in general. For my first layer, I'm mixing a little bit of my pink color corrector into my concealer, and the pink is gonna help to color correct a little bit of the blue in the brow hairs. And the way to apply the concealer onto your brows is to sort of furrow your brow and then brush the product through the brow hairs backwards so that the back of the brow is coated with the concealer. And I find that brushing from the back firstly prevents too much concealer from getting onto your skin, and secondly, I find that it's a little bit more efficient in coating the brow hairs. And now that most of the brow hairs have been coated, you can now brush the hairs through from the front. And I like to let the brow hairs dry a little bit after brushing through the back so that less of the concealer gets transferred onto the skin. And I'm just lightly greasing the tips of the brow hair so that I don't get product on my skin. So this is the first layer done. I can see how the pink helped to neutralize some of the colors in my brow hairs. And then I'm allowing the concealer to dry a little bit before I go in my second layer. In this case, I am using the lighter shade of my warm toned concealer and applying an even layer on my spoolie. And I'm mostly using this to coat the brow hairs from the front. And this gives that bleached brow look. I'm really lightly brushing the product through my brows because I really don't want the product to get onto my skin. If you do get product on your skin, you can take a little bit of concealer on a small brush. In this case, it's the one that's closest to my skin tone that I use on the rest of my face. And I'm lightly tapping just to blend out the edge of the brow. And I think I'm happy with the look, and this is what the bleached brow is looking like. And for the first look in this video, I'll be doing the Abracadabra makeup look in the Abracadabra music video. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous because I love warm burgundies, and the fact that everything is really glittery and shimmery does something to me. So now I'm setting everything with my setting powder, and I'm using the Kosas Cloud Set Translucent Loose Powder in Translucent Candy. And I'm lightly dusting my face with the powder just to set everything in place. And first, I want to go with my contour. I'm using the Judydoll palette in 02. And I'm using the palette just to cover out some cheekbones. And I'm bringing the contour down a little bit further down than I would normally would, towards the middle of my cheeks. I'm also contouring my forehead. And for my temple, I'm connecting the contour from my temple to the outer parts of my eyes and blending it down into my cheek. I'm taking a smaller brush and I'm contouring my nose with it. So I'm mostly sharpening out the tip of my nose. And I like to also emphasize my brow bone. And because I do like deep set eyes like Lady Gaga, I'll be bringing that shadow into my brow bone area. So I'm following the natural hollow of my eye socket just to have more of a hollow look to my eyes. And I'm connecting it to my temple contour. Next, I'm going in with a bronzer. I'm using the House Labs bronzer in level 4. And I'm using it on the tops of my cheekbones. And then using a smaller brush, I'm bringing it under my eye. So for this, I'm actually following Sarah Tano's tutorial that she posted on TikTok. But I also have another video talking through my way of doing the Abracadabra look. But in my version, I actually blocked my brows and glued them down instead of doing a bleached brow look. So you can check it out somewhere on top just to see what other options you have for this look. And I'm also bringing the bronzer into my lid and in the inner corner of my eyes. For the rest of my eyes, I'll be going in with this Judydoll palette, and this is in number 7. It basically has some warm browns and warm reddish browns in this palette. So I'm first taking the lighter shade of the two, and I'm using it under my eyes and all over my lid. Next, I'm taking that reddish brown, and I'm using it on the outer corners of my eyes, into that crease that we made, and then flicking it out into a wing shape. But I'm also making sure to blend it into my temple contour so that everything looks seamless. I really like to use slightly denser fluffier brushes for this so that I have better control of where I place the product. It's slightly tapered at the top. And I'm using the same eyeshadow right at the outer corner of my eye. Next, on the main shimmer on the eyes, they actually use the House Labs High Power Pigment, and this is in the Rose Gold Shimmer shade. And this is what it looks like blended out. I find that it's a little bit more on the bronzier, copperier side compared to it being more rose gold, but it has really nice silver and gold glitter particles in it. So if you don't have this particular pigment, you can go in with a coppery brown eyeshadow and top it off with any translucent eyeshadow that you have with silver and gold glitters in it. In this case, this particular shimmer in the Judydoll palette actually has the gold and silver shimmers. And if I swatch it next to the pigment, it actually gives a similar reflect, just that the base shadow is not as dark as this. Another palette that I think is great for this shimmery look is actually this one from Clinique. And this is the limited edition eyeshadow palette that you can get now in the shade SO2. And it has really nice warm tones in it. And some of the shades even have some multi-dimensional glitters in them. For example, this shade right here has the gold and silver shimmers. Like swatching it here, this is the shimmer that it gives, and I think that it does give a similar effect. Again, just that the base shadow is a different color. This shade also has some interesting multi-dimensional shimmers, just that it has some pink. So I think that you can layer these two colors on top of each other to get a really nice multi-dimensional look. Just that you might need something like this shade underneath for that base color. And this is what all three shades layer on top of each other looks like. And even though it's a little bit more warm on the hand compared to this, so if you don't have the high power pigment, you can mix and match whatever you have in your arsenal as well. This eye, I'll be going in with the high power pigment, and I'm just applying a thin layer on my finger and dabbing it on my eye. And because this product actually dries down pretty quickly, it's best to work in thin layers. And I'm patting it all the way to my brow bone and to my inner corner. On this eye, I'll be going in with the Clinique palette. I'll be starting off with this taupey brown shade and applying it all over my eye. Then I'm mixing this shimmer in the palette and placing it on top. And I think that this part with the translucent pigment with the silver and gold shimmers really make a big difference in how the eyeshadows look. And I'm topping it off with this shade with the pink shimmers in it. I'm placing it more on the top part of my lid as well as my inner corner, and I'm bringing whatever's left on my brow bone. And this is what the eyeshadow looks like with all three shadows layered on top compared to the pigment itself. Just to balance things out, I'm going to put some of that pinky pigment on the other eye. If you also happen to have the Clinique palette in SO1, which is the cooler tone pinky, bluey, purpley palette, you can also take some of this white pigment here. It has some pinky, purpley reflect. You can use it on the top part of your lid, the corners, and on the brow bone just to add some extra dimension to the eye look. Basically, in Sarah Tano's tutorial, she does layer a couple of different highlighters on top of the pigment. Something pinky, something bluey. So if you have these shades, you can also use them in your look. But I find that these are just little extra things that can make your eyeshadow look pop. But I think just having the base bronzy rose gold shade works just enough, especially if you're looking from far away. Next, I'm taking a dark brown eyeshadow on a flat brush, and I'm using it just to define my lash line on the top and slightly winging out my eye. And I'm taking that same dark brown and just blending out the edges to get a softer liner look. Next, taking a white pencil liner, you want to tightline the waterline. Then bringing the eyeliner into my inner corner here. And repeating on the other eye. I'm just smudging out the excess. If I got a little bit on my eye, I'm just taking some of that brown shadow and cleaning up under my eye. To complete the eye, you want to add some highlighter in this inner part of your eye, so that when you look down, this portion of your eye actually gets highlighted. So this is how you get a really multi-dimensional eye look using a whole bunch of shimmers. To finish up my eye look, I'm just curling my lashes and applying some mascara. I'm also applying it on my bottom lashes, mostly focusing on the middle and outer lashes, because I don't want to disrupt the inner corner of my eye with too much mascara and closing it up again. For my lips, I recommend like a liquid lipstick just to get some longevity on your lips. If not, you can go in some lip liner and line the lips. This time, I'm trying to keep the cupid's bow kind of pointy. And then filling in the rest of my lips. So this is the lip shade that we're going for, and next I'm going in with a liquid. And next I'm going in my favorite lipstick. This is from Remakeup. It's kind of beat up, but it's in the shade number 41, which is a perfect sort of brownish red. And I chose this because it's a little bit more on the creamier, shinier side, so it'll give a really nice effect to the lips. Because this lipstick is on the creamier side, if you want it to last, you gotta dot most of it off. And tap some setting powder on to set everything before going in with another layer of lipstick. And now that your lipstick is on, you just want to top the middle of your lips with whatever eyeshadows you put on top of your eyes. I'm mostly going into the shadows with the silver gold glitters, laying on the center of my lip. And topping it off with the highlighter shade you put in the inner corner. And to finish off the look, you want to add 2 red rhinestones to the corner of your eye and your cheek. So the first one will be on the outer corner of your right eye. And for your cheek, it's in between the corner of your lip and cheekbone. So somewhere here. And I'm simply placing my rhinestone on top of the lash glue. And this is the finished Abracadabra look, Sarah Tano method. If you want to see a slightly more complicated version of this look that I did, feel free to click on the link above. And you don't actually have to do this look with the bleached brow, but I think the bleached brow really adds to the vibes that the Mayhem album is trying to bring. But this look is so stunning. And honestly, it's pretty wearable for me, so I can't wait to wear this outdoors. In this part of the video, I'll be doing Lady Gaga's new everyday look, which is the look that she's been doing for most of her red carpet appearances. It's both really soft but also really striking at the same time, and I think that the blonde bleached brows are really playing their part to make a really soft looking look like this look really edgy and striking. So I put on my foundation, the Clinique foundation, and then bleaching my brows. Now that my foundation is done and my brows have been bleached, I'm going to go in and contour my face with the Judydoll contour palette in 02. And I'm mostly carving out my cheekbones, and I'm applying the contour just a little bit darker than I normally would, just because I don't have that chiseled look that Gaga has. And then contouring my temple, and using a smaller, fluffier brush, I'm contouring my nose, putting a lot of shadow right at the point where my nose meets my eyebrows, as well as the tip of my nose. I'm sort of creating a deep set eye look by adding shadow to the contour of my eye and then following the eye socket here and just placing the contour powder in the socket. And I'm connecting it to the nose contour that I did, so that it's one continuous line. And then at the outer corner, I'm taking more contour powder and connecting it into my temple contour so that it continues up like this, and it makes it look like my eyes and face are more sharp in this direction and gives a more lifted look to my face. Next, I'm going with the Neutrals version of the Makeup by Mario Master Palette. I'm going in with this slightly warmer brown shade in the palette, and I'm focusing the shadow at the outer third of my eye and also blending it into my lash line. And then bringing it up into the outer part of my crease and onto my eyelid, mostly keeping to the outer third. And I'm using a really light hand here, both with the amount of eyeshadow that I'm using and with the pressure I'm putting on the brush, because I want the eyeshadow to be blended out. I'm not putting too much product on, and I'm opting to layer as and when it's needed. And a lighter hand with the brush allows for a more gentler blend. And I bring the shadow up into my temple. Next, I'm taking a smaller pencil brush. Using the same shade, I'm running that eyeshadow at my bottom eyelid, keeping it pretty close to my lash line, but making sure that it's blended. Next, I'm taking this brown shade in the corner, the same small pencil brush, and then I'm patting the color closer to my lash line. I'm following the bottom curve of my lower lash line to my eyebrow, and this is the direction that I want my wing to form. So I'm dragging the eyeshadow up in that direction, and by this time you shouldn't have a lot of product on your brush. And connecting it to the bottom lash line, and this time I'm sticking way closer to my lash line and I'm bringing it towards the outer third of my eye. So most of the shadow should be located at the outer third, and I really want to make sure that the edges are blended out into the shadow prior. If not, I can also take the contour brush again and lightly blend out the edges so that there isn't a harsh line. Lastly, I'm taking the darkest brown in the palette and I'm using it to darken out the outer corner of my eye. I'm patting it in and then bringing it up slightly into that wing, and also darkening out the outer third of the eye. And then I'm taking a little bit off the brush, making sure there's a little bit of product still, and using this to darken the inner part of my crease, just to add some variety in the shadow there. Next, I'm taking my white jawliner and I'm highlighting the inner corner in a rounded shape, and then applying the liner in the inner third of the eye, and I'm also tightlining my eye. Now for my lid, I'm taking the lightest beige shade in this palette and I'm applying it all over my lid, placing more of the shadow towards the middle lash line area. And if I brought the shadow up too high, I'm gonna go in with the contour color again just to redefine the crease. Then lastly, I'm taking a white eyeshadow. I'm using a small flat shader brush and I'm using it to set the inner corner white, slightly softening out the edges, placing it on top of the inner corner highlight to connect the lower lash line to the inner corner. And lastly, I'm placing some white in the middle, again focusing it closer. Next, I'm taking a black jawliner and I'm tightlining my upper lash line. And then drawing a little wing, the outer corner like that. For the jawliner sets, I'm taking a bit of the dark brown mixed with the black and smoking out that jawliner. Then blending the wing out into the shadow. Then I'm going to curl my lashes and pull my mascara. This is the eye look done. You can put off falsies if you want to, I'm just opting not to. Now for cheeks, there isn't much blush going on, there is a hint of blush. So I am going in with something more on the muted side and applying just a little bit of blush. And I'm mostly applying a little bit of blush, quite sparingly and lightly, on the bottom part of my cheek. Just keeping the blush isolated to this area and slightly blending it into the contour. But of course, if you have a longer face, you can definitely move the blush a bit higher. For highlight, I'll be going in my Clinique Minuto highlighter, so something that's a little bit more on the translucent side. And then I'm just highlighting my cupid's bow, my nose, and my cheekbones. And lastly, for lips, I know that Sarah Teno actually uses a blush on the lips. You could use a cream to powder blush, something like the Rare Beauty matte bouncy blushes. This one is in the shade Hope. Or you could also go in with a lip clay or lip matte that's really popular in Korea and China now. Something that's more matte and powdery looking. For example, if I were to use a cream to powder blush, and if you apply it all over the lip and blend everything out, then I'm going in with the shade Worth. It's a little bit more warm in the center of my lip. And I'm slowly building up the colour until I reach the desired outcome. Basically, you want to focus the darker shade in the middle of your lip, especially at this point, and it sort of gives you a poutier look. So this is what it looks like with just the blush on. However, if you want to go with the lip matte option, something like the 3CE Hazy Lip Matte will work really well. I just applied a little bit on my hand, and I'll be using my fingers to apply the product and patting it on my lip, making sure there isn't any harsh lines. Using it on my upper lip, and then to add more definition, adding more to the center of my lip. And because the 3C lip mattes have more of a silicone texture, it's really easy to blend out, and it sort of gives you that dry, matte lip finish. But compared to the blush, it definitely looks a lot more opaque on my lips. I think I'll be going in with the blush method for this look, but I think it'd be really nice if you combine both methods. So I'm placing the blush down as a base layer, get that really sheer wash of colour over the lips, before going in with the 3C lip clay and adding some pigment to the center of my lips. And I think that combining both the blush and the lip clay really gives me the best of both worlds, where I get the sort of blurry, translucent look of the base and being able to add pigment into the center of my lips without adding too much. And both of these really give me that really nice blurry matte look to the lips that Lady Gaga has been wearing a lot recently. And this is the look done. I think the key points to this look is making sure that your eye shape is really nice and lifted while making sure that the shadows are nicely blended into each other. And the placement of the lip colours really play a big part in making your lips look really pouty, like my lips literally doubled in size just from this placement alone. But this look is also an excellent base for the look that Lady Gaga is wearing on her Mayhem Tour. So the base shape is pretty much the same, just that there's shimmer on the lid and she has a red lip on. So let's transform this Lady Gaga look into what she's wearing on stage right now. I'll be adding on the shimmer to my lid, so something similar to the tones that I use in the Abracadabra makeup look, so more on the warm rose gold bronzy side, and then placing it all over my lid. Adding a bit of white shimmer to the inner corners just to connect it to the lid. And then I'm adding on a strip lash, just applying a little bit of glue onto my eyelash. And I'm just using my liquid liner to go over the lash band. And very lightly using my curler just to press my lashes with the false lash. I'm barely pressing it down at all. I'm changing my lip, and this time I'll be going in with my liquid lip and using it as a base. And I'm using my red lipstick that's brighter than my liquid lip, and I'm using it in the center of my lips. And then using a little bit of that shimmer on my lid in the middle of the lipstick. And this is pretty much the look that she's wearing on stage right now, so you can decide which version of the look you want to wear to the concert. Welcome to the Chromatica Ball part of the video. So I'll be recreating this look that Lady Gaga wore during her Chromatica tour a while back. And it's this gorgeous, smoky, glittery, graphic eye kind of look paired with a really nice bold lip. And although you can do this without doing the bleached brow, I do think that the bleached brow allows for an eye look to stand out a lot more, especially because Lady Gaga has really dark, thick eyebrows. So that's what I'll be doing in this part of the video. So I'm just going to do my foundation. I'm using the Clinique foundation, and then go ahead and do my fake bleached brow. And then I'll come back to show you how to do the eye and lip. Now that my foundation is on and my brows have been bleached, I'm going to be powdering my face just to make sure that I have a smooth matte base for my powders to go on top of. I'm going to start by contouring my face first. I'm just covering up my face to make it look just a little bit more hollow than it actually is. Again, bring the contour a bit further down than I would normally. And then contouring my temple. I'm also contouring my nose. Bringing it slightly onto my lid. Moving on to the eye, we want to use a gel liner just to map out the shape of the eyeliner first. I'm going to start from the outer corner of my eye, and I'm following the shape of my lower lash line to draw a wing up. And then I'll be following the natural hollows of my eyes. If your eyelid is more on the flat side, then you can do a sort of fake cut crease by making sure that your eyes are open, and then tracing out the shape that you want. This ensures that when your eyes are both open and closed, you can see a line that's clearly marking out where you want the shadow to be. Following the line that I drew and doing that shape. The outer edge is sort of a curved wing. I want to mark out where I want my wing to end, which I think would be around where my eyebrow naturally ends, just a little bit further out. And then I'm connecting both of these lines down. But at this point, I'm going to round it instead of joining it in a V. And for the inner corner, you want to bring it down like this. And if you make any mistakes, you can just use a nail and rub it off. And then I'm further darkening out the line. I want to extend my inner corner just a little bit, so I'm following the angle of my upper lid and drawing a line down. For the bottom wing, you want to start around the middle of your bottom eyelid and draw a short line. And then I'm following the angle of this line here. So this is the general shape of the eye look, and repeat on the other eye. It'll be a lot easier to follow just because you really have a guide on the other side. But then I like to look straight ahead into the mirror and do my dot placements before I go in with the eyeliner all over. And it's really important to keep your eyes open during this step so that if you have asymmetrical looking eyes like mine, the eyeliner will look symmetrical when your eyes are open. Next, I'm going in with a cool toned matte eyeshadow. I'm using the Makeup by Mario Master Matte in the neutrals, and I'm using a small tapered brush like this that's more on the rounded side. Just taking this taupey brown, and I'm using it to lightly blend out the eyeliner. I'm trying to keep it within the confines of the line itself. I don't really want to bring it too far down. Instead, I'm focused on bringing this taupey shade more to the upper side of the eye look, using whatever's left on the brush to just slightly smoke out the edges. If you do have a clean brush, you can use it to blend it out as well. And I'm focusing it more on the actual taupe eyeshadow. And I'm bringing the eyeshadow further into the inner corner, just to lightly smoke out the outer part of the liner. And then blending out the edge a little bit with the clean brush. Next, I'm going in with this dark brown, taking most of the powder off on my hand. And then going in again, even more lightly this time on the actual liner, imitating the black and the taupe that we placed down. And also on my lower lash line. Smoking the gel liner out. I'm gonna wipe off most of the brown. Now I'm going in with the black on the same brush. Again, getting a lot of the excess off. And this time you're gonna blend out the entire gel liner. And it helps to look down into a mirror if you have one. Of course, you could just go in with the black from the start and start blending out the gel liner like that. I do like to layer in a little bit of brown. Firstly, to give me more of a shadow on my eye so that it looks like I have a deeper set eye. And the brown also gives a great foundation for the black to go upon, so that when you go in and blend everything out, it blends a lot quicker. Then go in with the gel liner again, just to fix up any of the lines, or to add even more darkness to areas that maybe aren't as dark as you like. If you make any mistakes, you can go in with a wet wipe or a Q-tip with some micellar water just to clean up the edges. For example, I want to clean up the inner corner, just to make the line a little bit thinner. And I'm using my nail to just carve out the shape. If you have uneven eyes like me, I like to stop my wing at around 1/3 of my outer corner of my eye. But if you can draw a line all the way through, feel free to do so. Next, I'm taking the black again, and I'm setting the jaw liner. Also slightly smoking it out. I'm taking a bit of my tissue and sort of cleaning up the bottom ledge here. So I found that it's drooping down a little bit too much. And I'm doing the same thing to my bottom lash line. So I'm finally taking a black eyeshadow and I'm smoking out the jaw liner. I'm using my finger to clean up the bottom edge. If you have like a flat, smaller brush like this, it's super handy just to sharpen out the corners. And I'm also using this in my inner corner to set the jaw liner there. And lastly, for the lid, I'm going in with some white glitter or white highlighter. This one is from Clinique and it's the Shadow Veil in number 1. I'm going in with the smoother side and I'm applying it all over my lid. I'm using my fingers for this, but you can go in with a brush I'm trying my best to avoid the black, but if you do get it on the black, I'm going more eyeshadow and just blend it on top. Next, I'm taking the chunkier side and placing it in the middle of my lids. Then taking my white pencil liner, and I'm adding a white line in the space that we created here. But you can also go in and fill in the gap here, and just slightly blend it out. So that's the eye look mostly done. You just want to curl your lashes and put on mascara. You can also put on a pair of falsies if you want to, but there's nothing too thick so that it doesn't obstruct the lid space that we created. For the rest of my face, I'll be going in with mostly bronzer just to give some colour to my face and my cheeks. I'm applying it sort of like blush, so quite broadly on my cheekbone, and then blending it into my contour that we did earlier. And I'm applying the same white highlighter shade on the high points of my cheeks. Of course, you can go in with a highlighter that suits your complexion. So instead of using white, you could go in for like an icier gold colour if you have deeper skin, or in icier champagne. And lastly, for the lips, I'll be going in with MAC Chili, which is a warm tone orangey red. So in the inspo picture, Lady Gaga is wearing an orangey lip. But if oranges don't suit you, you can go ahead with a red lipstick that matches your undertone. I'm applying it all around my lips, and then slightly overdrawing them a little bit. And I'm adding a little bit of gloss in the center of my lips. I'm using the Crave Beauty jelly lip oil thing in Ice Persimmon. So this is the Chromatica Ball look completed. I do think that this look is pretty simple in its own right if you are familiar with doing graphic liner looks. If you're not really confident with doing graphic liner looks like this, first you can start with the eyes, and then when you're happy with the shape of the jawliner, you can then continue doing the rest of your base makeup underneath it before you go in and set and then smoke out the jawliner, so that if you make mistakes with the jawliner, you can easily wipe it off using micellar water on a Q-tip or on a tissue and not disrupt the base makeup that's underneath. And I find that this look is kind of customizable depending on the vibe that you want to go for. If you really want to replicate the look exactly, you can bleach the brows, you can wear the orange lip. But if you like more blush, you can add more blush. If you don't want to bleach your brows, you don't have to. And you can always change out the undertone of the lip instead of... And you can always change out the undertone of the lipstick instead of doing something really orangey if you're not comfortable with that. Welcome to the Alejandro part of the video, and I'll be recreating this really ethereal looking look that was done on Lady Gaga in her Alejandro video. And I think that this is one of the looks that really shaped the makeup style that she has now. Because back when Lady Gaga first debuted, she was wearing tons of eyeliner, really dark heavy lashes, really strong lips, and this is one of the first times that she appeared in a music video with what looks like almost nothing on her face, but we all know that is full of product. So this look is going to be a little bit more involved. I'll be doing my foundation first, focusing on getting that glowy, multi-dimensional look before going ahead to do my bleach brow. And I'll be using this Clinique foundation in all the looks in this video. Firstly, it's because it's lighter than my actual skin tone, but not too much that it becomes like a mask. And it has a really nice glowy finish that I think works great for this particular look, especially as the glow is going to add on to the ethereal look that we're trying to get at the end of this makeup look. Next, I'm taking my pink color corrector, placing some of it on the back of my hand, and I'm using a fluffy brush to work it into the dark points under my eye, mostly in the inner corner, and then bringing the excess into the outer corner. Then I'm taking my normal concealer shade and mixing just a little bit of lighter concealer and concealing my dark eye circles, blending it down into the foundation. I'm also using my fingers to blend everything out so that everything looks seamless. I have this Judydoll brightening palette that I really want to try, and it comes with this finger-shaped puff. And I'm rubbing it into the cream side of the brightener and applying it in the front of my face, as well as my cheekbones. And I'm actually going to blend everything out with my foundation brush, blending the edges into my foundation. And then to contour, I'll be using my Rare Beauty Liquid Contour in the shade Solace, and placing the contour on my cheekbone, my nose, and around my nose bridge. And again, using the same foundation brush to blend everything in. And I'm not adding much of it to add color, I'm just using it to lightly shape my face. And because I'm already using a lighter foundation, now I'm going in with my Liquid Illuminate. This is from Rare Beauty in the shade Enlighten, and I'm putting a little bit on my finger and applying it on the high points of my face. But I'm also applying it rather broadly, mostly around the area where I applied the brightener from Judydoll. So my nose as well. Then when I turn my face around, I do want a little bit of highlight on the side of my chin. And then in the middle as well. So basically I want to highlight where the light catches and reflects off. So that when I powder my face, I still get some of that glow remaining. And then also across my forehead like this. And above the arch of my brows. And on these areas I'm not putting a lot of the illuminator on, just a small bit, so that I don't look too oily. I'm taking my loose powder, preferably something that isn't too matte. And I'm really working the powder into the brush. And then setting my face with the powder. And I'm doing this because I have oily skin. So if I don't powder my face, everything will melt off in the heat. But because you added the illuminator, my face doesn't look super flat. Now I'm just gonna go in and do my bleach brow. And now that my brows are bleached and my base has been powdered and set, the first step so far in every tutorial has been to contour my face, so this is no different. I really want to sculpt out my face. So heavier contour again. I'm trying to make my face look extra gaunt and shaped. And when you're doing heavy contour like this, try to work it into the hairline as well, so that there's no like demarcation between the contour and your hair. And also bringing it towards my eye. And then I'm contouring my tall forehead. I think my contour is a little bit warm for this look, so I'm going in with a little bit of grey, getting most of the excess out on my hand. And I'm using this to cool down the contour that I used. So you can see this is after the grey and this is before. Now I'm going to take another layer of my liquid luminizer and lightly reapplying on top of what we put already. So I'm doing this just to amplify the shine. And I'm going to set the luminizer with the Zen Pearl Glow. And I'm dusting it on top of the highlighter we put. If you haven't watched my horse girl makeup yet, in that video I talked a lot about the different kinds of highlighters that I like that don't screw up my textured skin. And the Zen highlighter is one of them. So the link will be around here and you can go ahead and watch it. And of course, above my brow bone, so as you can see when I turn my face, there is a constant glow all around. I'm also applying the highlighter basically all around my lid as a base to the eyeshadow that we're putting on top, and especially packing it on my brow bone. And if you have darker skin than this, you can definitely use a cool toned highlighter that works for your skin tone. In this case, I'm using really light champagne because I'm kind of fair right now. And we want to pack it onto the inner corner as well. Now for my eyelids, I actually want to go in with a taupey silvery shade. So I'll be mixing these two shimmers. These are from the Stone Cold Faux palette from Colourpop. And I'll be mixing these two shades to get a brown tone silver shade that looks something like this. And you want to use shimmers that are really smooth with no chunky glitters in them. And I'm applying it all over my lid. You could just use a silver if you just have that, but I do think that there is a little bit of brown in the shadow, but I can't really tell because of the colour grading in the look. You can always top it off with more highlighter. And I'm basically mixing and matching my eyeshadow until I'm happy with the colour. And I'm placing the highlighter more towards the middle of my lid. With the same highlighter and shimmer combo, I'm blending out the edge of the shimmer shadow towards my crease and my brow bone. And I'm blending the eyeshadow outwards towards my temple in sort of a winged shape. Next, I'm taking my white jawliner and tight lining, as well as doing that little highlight in the inner corner. And this technique being done so far back and seeing it replicated again just recently really shows how much of an impact this Alejandro look has on Lady Gaga. And it's interesting to see how this change has fit into her current aesthetic. Now I'm using some white shadow just to set the eyeliner. And then for underneath my eye, taking a cool tone taupey shade, and I'm smoking out the lower lash line. So I'm blending the eyeshadow out slightly underneath the white that we put before, and then dragging it out just a little bit on the upper lash line, just to connect the bottom and top together, before slightly dragging out the shadow into a small little wing. This look doesn't have any mascara, but if you want to add mascara, falsies, whatever, just go ahead. I'm going to add a little bit of white shimmer, and I want to pack it onto the brow bone just for an extra oomph, because I don't think that the highlighter was doing enough. A little bit on the center of my lid. I don't think that there was any blush used, so I'll go straight into lips. And for lipstick, we're gonna use a sort of violet reddish color. This one that I have is a little bit more on the purple side, so we're mixing in a little bit of red later on. I'm gonna blot first though because this lipstick is kind of shiny. I'll be going in with some MAC Ruby Woo, which is a more matte red, and I'm going in and mixing the two shades together. And you can see the change in the lipstick color just by doing this. If you have a matte version of this lipstick, go ahead and use that. It seems that the lips were matte while the rest of the skin and the eyes were shiny, and this creates a nice contrast between the eyes and the lip. And lastly, you're gonna go in with a black liquid liner. Draw a mole at the outer corner. If you want even more glow, you can go in with a hydrating setting mist. This one is from Kosas. Another option is the Makeup by Mario setting mist as well. And you sort of want to put a little bit more setting spray than you would normally and allow it to dry. And you can see how much my skin looks more glowy and dewy from the setting mist. And this is the finished makeup look. It's more on the simple side given the complex looks that Lady Gaga has done, especially with her huge wings, her big lashes and all that. But I think the combination of the bleached brow, the really shiny and glowy skin, as well as the matte lip is an amazing way to play with textures and contrast. So this is the end of the second part of my 4-part makeup recreation series of Lady Gaga's iconic makeup looks over the years. Hopefully just in time for the Mayhem Tour in Singapore. In this part of the series, we covered how to fake that bleach brow look and did 4.5 different Lady Gaga inspired makeup looks. If you want to learn how to block your brows or just do any of these looks that are shown here, you can watch them in my first part of this series. And for the third part of this video series, I'll be covering some of the iconic graphic liner looks Lady Gaga has done, especially in the front part of her career. So if you want to learn how to do some of the graphic liner looks that she has done, you can look forward to them in the third part of this video series. I hope this video has been helpful and you've learned some useful tips and tricks. If you like my videos, feel free to subscribe and like this video. Share this with your friends, especially those who are going to attend the concert soon. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I have 2 different accounts with the same usernames on the both of them. So thank you for watching this video and I hope to see you in my next one.